Shall we? Well, just coming past you, sir.
Look to you, Mark.
So they can do the board.
Yeah. I thought that was your. I started thinking, wow, he got out there fast.
Yeah, see you tomorrow!
Just feel like, you know, like take your time with the ending.
Can shut that box. Yeah, you can go in there. Just put that top in. Can. Or if the wedges make it too much.
No idea going to. John?
Gents, who was on the pole in the shotgun?
When, pardon me? When,
Excuse me? Are you going to pay for that? Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Great. They went, Chuck? Good. And action.
Excuse me? Are you going to pay for that? Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Go 1, 2, 3.
Right. Guys asking how you can tell us.
Yeah, what do you think?
Is my eyeliner jack real?
Try it.
I've got low legs as well. I mean, there's something quite funny about it. There's something quite funny.
We should do both.
Yeah.
Here, we can put an eye out.
Is she coming in? Yeah. It's like having magic powers.
Oh, I'm too close. If I get in the eye.
Yeah, okay. So much fun. Oh, I love it. I said we look.
Oh, we see you.
Yes, I'm sure you're ready, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, and playback.
Listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalks where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose?
Can't believe it.
I can.
Okay, Cash.
Thank you, Matt.
What's your name?
Lexi.
That's a lovely name. Whoops.
Here we go. Ready, Chung?
Okay.
Ready, Chung? Video. Ready, Chris?
Ready.
And playback.
When you do, I tend to do actually, maybe it's a thing, smile line. Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's go straight away.
Reset, please, reset.
You'll have to cross the wall, Mary.
Yes.
Oh, we're in London. Very old London.
It's like a scene out of Baywatch. Try and watch.
Oh, you mean yeah. And action. All right, one, two, three, thank you very much.
Settle yourself, you just like completely like shameless. And then what you've been doing, Thank you.
926, take 3. Set.
Background action. Action. Background action. Action.
Least I can do is drive you home.
What's the most?
Well.
Do you know Gucci Street?
Well.
I'm on Gucci Place. Number 8.
Camera and background action, action cast.
Yeah, I agree.
My favorite memory of last night in Soho was Matt, Thomason, and I all doing the dance at the very beginning, the first 60 sequence. That was so much fun and so technical, which I really, really enjoy. But also because most of it's in camera, any time that we're not on screen, one of us was running behind the camera like a loon. And it was just so much fun to actually be there and see that side of it. I almost prefer the behind the scenes to the actual shot, which says something, I think. It was wonderful because you get so inspired by the people that you work with. And especially every time, you know, if you work the way that I do and you're doing so many different movies, every time you meet somebody new, you learn something more about your craft. And I definitely learned from Tomo and Matt. And then we all just liked each other so much. So that helped on the night shoots. We were doing night shoots for a long time, and that was really helpful. Edgar loves film and music so much that you cannot help but be inspired when you are around him. Like, his excitement is so contagious, and it's, I don't know, you just never forget that you're doing something exciting when you're with him. And I love that because I love filmmaking and I love music. And so blending the two of them together is pretty ace. Filming at nighttime in Soho in London is such an experience. The characters that you see, it's pretty wild. But what was also really funny is you're going to work and you're seeing your friends going out for the weekend and you're just like, what's real? What isn't real? Where am I? But it was so much fun also because I spent a lot of time in Soho in London, and because of our filming schedule, we got to find out all about these little alleyways and these shortcuts and stuff. So I now feel like I'm a secret spy of London Soho. Music plays a huge role in our movie, but it does in every single one of Edgar's movies. You know, he really is a fan, which is something that we connected on a lot. But I think the music really anchors you into the time and place. It helps you understand Eloise's obsession with the 60s. It kind of paints a very glamorous picture. And then with the score, what we've done is we've added in all of these really dark elements to it. And it was such a pleasure to be a part of that. It was really lovely because I had Matt there, and Matt loved it, and he was so supportive and sweet. Because it's quite nerve-wracking to stand on a stage in front of people that you respect and admire, and at that point are your friends, you know, and just standing there and singing. But it was such an incredible experience, and it definitely, you know, I caught the bug from it for sure. I have loved collaborating with Steve Price. He's just so wonderful, and he has such an avid love for music, obviously, but he gets really into the details and the stories behind everything, and he's so supportive. And also just Edgar's excitement. Honestly, Edgar's excitement is really contagious and fun, and it just always makes you remember that you're doing something that you wanted to do when you were a little kid, you know, so it kind of keeps the dream alive in that way. So yeah, collaborating with the two of them, and they both are appreciative of when I go creepy, which I really enjoy doing. It is very fun to do like a little girl sing-songy creepy voice on tracks. I enjoy that. Sandie breaks my heart because that is, you know, she has a dream. She has a dream that she would give anything for, and I think especially at that time, because, you know, I know that feeling. I wanted to be a performer, and when you don't have an in anywhere, anybody that's offering to, you know, give you a helping hand into an industry that's notoriously difficult to get into, you kind of choose to follow it and you trust it, and you have to have the trust that that person is good for you. And unfortunately for Sandie, she just put her trust in the wrong person, but I think it's because she wanted it so much. One of the things that made us all so excited about the film from the beginning is how much of it Edgar wanted to be practical. So rather than, of course there's VFX in the movie, but whenever we could do it for real, we did it for real. And so there are shots of, you know, a camera coming through a mirror and you think it's me, but it's actually Thomasin, and I'm running around behind, and we're figuring it out that way. And that was so much fun because you just had a real sense of teamwork, because so many little things had to go right in order to pull a move like that off. And then when you go back and you watch it on the monitor, and you're just like, oh, like, I mean, I remember that there was a scene, I mean, it's pretty much all of them, but anytime we nailed it, like, I don't know, I'm waiting behind a pillar and Matt's walking with Thomasin, and then we swap hands and it's seamless. That felt so good. So yeah, I'm really proud of the practical effects of the movie.
I'd never done a horror film or anything before, or any kind of scary story, thriller type thing. So I think that aspect of it was really exciting for me, kind of a new genre to explore and to see how it fits and stuff. But also I really loved the relationship between Ellie and her grandma, played by Rita Tashingham, because like Ellie, I'm really, really close with my grandma, and she's played a massive role in kind of my upbringing. And my grandma has taken me to my piano lessons since I was 6. And so this is kind of similar to how Peggy has taught Ellie how to sew for, you know, as long, since she was a really little girl. The only question I remember him asking was, is there anything you think you'd be scared or nervous about doing? And I was like, oh no, nothing. I think it's all good, which was the wrong answer, because there was like so much really intense stuff in the script, and some really, like tough scenes we've done. So little did I know what an amazing but very challenging and challenging role it has been. I play Eloise Turner, and she goes by Ellie, and she is an 18-year-old girl who is leaving her little town of Redruth in Cornwall to go off to London, to the big city, to pursue her fashion, kind of passion for fashion. My take on Ellie is that she's full of like a lot of passion and energy and excitement, but she has a very insecure side to her, and that's a bit nervous and unsure. And yeah, and there's a bit of a juxtaposition between like her really excited and passionate and determined side, and also she's got quite a dark side to her, because I think her mum had struggled with mental illness, which is something that has kind of been passed down to Ellie, and we don't see that at the beginning, but we gradually see that start to come out and affect her day-to-day life. At the beginning, when she first moves to London, yeah, she's really excited and wide-eyed and starstruck. And then she starts to realise that there's a very dark side to the big city. Sandie and Ellie have a similar life story, I think. They both started off with a lot of passion and determination. They both moved to London with big dreams and big hopes, and those hopes and dreams are both slowly start to get broken down, and they both start to see the reality of what they've kind of gotten themselves into. Anya Taylor-Joy plays Sandie, and she brings a lot of joy, no pun intended, to the set and to the movie, and her Sandie is really truly magnificent. She brings a lot of courage and sassiness and determination, and a witty spirit to Sandie. Yeah, she does a really beautiful job and is just in general an incredible person. I think she's the most hard-working person I've ever met in my life. Like, she just doesn't stop. Matt is amazing. Is such a cool guy, and it's crazy working with him, because I remember like watching the Doctor Who series and just being a bit geeky with me and my best friend Kiki over all that, and watching The Crown and everything, and then meeting him in real life. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. And he is, yeah, like Anya, just such a joy. There was one scene that I really, I've loved all the scenes he's done, but there's one that really stood out to me, was the scene where Ellie and Jack are running down the corridor in the basement club, I think it was, and Jack is, I don't know, we pass a whole lot of doors through and see into different really frightening scenes, and I really admired how Matt didn't do that performance in just a typical kind of scary asshole way. He did it in a real kind of like Joker, kind of sadistic, teasing kind of way, and that was like, I don't know, that really excited me. I thought it was really amazing. Well, but it's very, very complicated, and I have no idea how Edgar and Paul and Chung and everyone have like figured it out, because there's so many different layers, and you just have to really be on the ball with, I don't know what, all the different angles and eye lines and all of that kind of stuff. So kudos to them. But there's a lot of mirrors play a big role in the film. There's a lot of stuff with reflection, and yeah, and whenever in the dreams, you always, well, nearly always see Ellie in the reflection, and what should be Sandie's reflection is Ellie. So like in the reflection of the car window, or in the Café de Paris, it's surrounded by mirrors, and that's where you see Ellie. Seeing London, Soho being transformed and kind of being taken back in time. And I think also just for the general public who have happened to be walking around and through the sets and where we've been filming and going, what the hell is going on? Why have I just walked through like a time portal or something? Why am I suddenly in the 60s? So that aspect of it has been incredible. I've never worked so closely with the wardrobe team before, I think, in like choosing Ellie's costume, because fashion is such a big part of the film, because Ellie is a fashion student and she has a very specific, quite really cool style and everything. It was amazing having such an input and an opinion, and then having that heard. It was awesome. I felt very lucky because I really felt like I had even more power in developing Ellie as a character, as a person. And same with makeup, with the wigs and everything. It's been so cool because it really helps. Like, same with the accent, with the costume and with the makeup and hair and everything. It really helps to develop the character and to, just to bring Ellie alive. Well, at the very, very beginning of the film, the first thing you see Ellie wearing is a newspaper dress that she's made herself, which is incredibly detailed and intricate, and only something a very skilled person could make, which wasn't me, obviously. It was Sam, part of the wardrobe team. And then when she first arrives in London, she's wearing a homemade overall dress with a funky turtleneck cheetah print top underneath and a big brown jacket, and that's her country mouse look, kind of her just home DIY homemade look, where she looks with her plaits looking a lot younger and innocent and kind of naive and excited. Just researching Diana and watching videos of her from her past roles that Edgar sent me, and seeing how amazing she is and how strong and sassy and cool and talented she is. It makes an incredible setting for this film because, like Ellie, I think the whole world looks at London as being very shiny and a big city full of opportunities, and that's what is perceived on kind of the top layer. But once you go deeper into it, you kind of discover the harsher, dirtier side of London, and that's the journey that Ellie goes through as well.
I first heard about Last Night in Soho in February, and I did about 2 months of auditioning. So the first 2 auditions were kind of dry read type auditions, and then my third recall was a chemistry test with our lead protagonist. And after that, I heard I got the role, and then I met with Edgar Wright, and he kind of gave me more of a consensus and more of a feel of the script. And he showed me a lot of mood boards and references and just the history of where the idea kind of stemmed from. Getting to know him more has been phenomenal, you know. And then when he started to just show me more about his film knowledge and more about his visions for Last Night in Soho, I was just fascinated about how much films Edgar knows. And yeah, that was exciting. And it's always felt like I'm learning from someone who has had so much years of experience. And I think for me, that was the biggest incentive to wanting to do Last Night in Soho. I play John Drama, and I believe he is a very gentle spirit, genuine at heart, and it's just a easygoing guy who wants to make sure that everyone's okay, you know. And I feel like clarity is one of his biggest things, as you will find when you watch John back. John and Ellie are fashion students at London College of Fashion, and even before filming, I remember going to London College of Fashion, and it's huge school with a lot of introverted type people who you could tell were under immense amounts of pressure, you know, doing their final projects for their final shows where they would show different looks, 10 different looks. And in that school, it's quite competitive. You could see people breaking down, you know. There was even talks of, I think one of the tutors was saying that in group leading, they have a group leading assignment where 10 students come together and they have to agree on something, and students can actually fire other students. It was crazy. So that was the world that we were going into, and Edgar was great in making sure that we had that context beforehand. The reason why John is so drawn to Ellie is because I feel like they're both outcasts, They're John, for example, comes from South London and he's into fashion. I mean, that might be frowned upon amongst his friends, to be into something which is so unconventional. It's not like football, it's not like music, it's not like, being the center of attention. It's, using your hands. And John actually comes from a tailor's background. So his aunties, dad would have tailored more traditional African clothes. And in terms of Eloise, she is also similar to John because she comes from Cornwall, but they both come from that natural tailored background where she's been sewing clothes for God knows how long, and when she first comes into the school, she's even wearing something that she's made herself. And that to other students is a little bit intimidating. She's just so focused, you feel it. When those cameras are ready, she's just, she's in it. She has the emotion. And, I've seen some of the notes that Edgar gives her to just do something so small, to change how a scene ends or how she says a certain line, and she just takes it on board. And then we watch playback and I'm just like, you're brilliant. And she's so young as well, to have so much amounts of pressure on her shoulders and what she's doing with it. I think she's going to be very proud when she watches herself back. The life in the 60s has been phenomenal to look at, because I remember I drove past a particular scene where it was Matt Smith and Anya who were having this scene outside a cinema in Haymarket, which is in central London, and how they just turned the whole street upside down with the cars that were involved. People were in tailored suits. The Empire Cinema had just been changed, and they had the really old poster of this, I think it was I can't remember who it was, but it was a 007 movie, an action movie that was being shown. And that to me was so magical, because I was I've never seen anything like this. And for millennials like me, it's a bit of a eye-opener to go, there were people that lived here before us who, were doing exactly the same things, but just in a different style. Soho, for me, has always been nightlife. It's been mystery, endless opportunities, things you don't never gonna know who's gonna come out, You never know what's coming around the corner. And I feel that's what makes it such a perfect atmosphere for Last Night in Soho. Working with Edgar's been so great because he's so free, man. Free for other actors to come in and add their own flavors and break the mold that he's created, or the formula that he's created. And it's I don't remember a moment, not one moment being on set doing a scene where it hasn't evolved or it hasn't changed slightly, And he's been so open to always asking for a different option. Just show me a different option. Let's have a different option. And for an actor, it's so comforting to know that someone wants to see you express yourself, because we know, being in TV and stuff, other directors might oh, let's play it safe, let's do something a little bit more subtle and stuff. But he's no, let's show me, express. The lighting on this is phenomenal, and how they've kind of used light to almost disorientate our visual eye, and how that can make you go, oh, what was that? Did that just happen? Did it not happen? And for an audience member, I think it's going to be hard to decide where the story is going, because just when you think you've got it, Edgar smashes it and it's that's not it, So yeah, that's exciting, and I can't wait to see an audience reaction to this movie. Down in Clapham, when we had to do a huge like Halloween party, and I was just so impressed with like the detail behind the costume, you know, and some of those Halloween costumes. I mean, people had like swords in their heads and brains coming out their mouth and all of these bizarre things happening. And for me, it was like one of the first scenes myself and Thomasin rehearsed actually. And there was like this huge sequence where, you know, you see all of like the costumes and me and Eloise coming down, and like you see everything, you see the life of it. And then you get the elements that Chung like has with the lighting and how things just turn on its head. And, you know, that for me was like one of the most fascinating things, because it was a real ensemble effort.
Edgar didn't tell me much. He just sent me a script and said, I've written a part and I think it's really dark. And I went, ooh, ping. And also, Edgar, any script from Edgar that comes to the door, you're like, wow, this is going to be interesting, because I just think he's such a brilliant filmmaker. I really do. I think the flair and the ingenuity and the sort of sense of originality that he has in Britain, you know, really is a sort of one-off, really. I read it and I saw that my sort of bit of it was set in the 60s, which was very enticing to me because it's such a wonderful period, great fashion, quite into the clothes. And then for one of Edgar's scripts, I thought it felt different. And there's so much of it, you know, that sort of really dark thriller that unfolds within the movie, I found really compelling. The way Edgar presents a script to you with the music and with all these ideas, and literally he gives you 50 films to watch and material to read, and he builds this world around you that you can invest in, and that made me really, really excited, because it's a really interesting lookbook of movies that he asks you to watch. The singularity that he brings, his style that he brings to the film, and the colour, that amazing Korean colour that can appear in his films, and in films from that country sometimes, where they're quite bold with colours, and I think he's done that in this film, and it feels there's a sort of the palette of colours is really striking, and I think he's just really talented, and together that's quite an exciting combination, I think, those two. Well, I played Jack, who is a lad about town, I suppose, and you know, he's always on the make and always on the move, and he's trying to make some money. He's kind of ducking and diving in Soho, and he's being literally a bit of a Jack the lad. And he's got a sharp suit, and he's got a nice motor and all that, and he's well turned out, and he's trying to make a bit of money. And then he meets the next part of your question is, and then he meets this young girl, Sandie, and I think he genuinely thinks he can turn her into a star, but quickly realises that her talent probably outweighs his own, and she will eventually outgrow him, and so then begins to sort of control and hold on to her. I love all the singing and the dancing that Anya's conquered so eloquently. I think she's done that with great aplomb and skill, and she's made Sandie sexy and vulnerable and interesting, and all the things that I think she was probably meant to be. But I think to pull off, you know, those big dance numbers has taken real ability. A lot of Edgar's films, like if you've seen Baby Driver or you've seen Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, there is always a deep rhythm inherently in the movies, and this is no different. So often you're doing things to a count or a door or a move, or we practice the dance in the middle of the movie at the Café de Paris for like a week, you know. But it's cool, I think that's a cool moment. And yeah, it's you know, music and rhythm and dance and movement in in this movie are real sort of characters, I suppose. I quite like the tailoring. The tailoring is quite boxy. In the suits, they're quite square, that sort of gangstery look. If you look at any pictures of the Craze or any of those guys from back in the day, they, you know, I mean, or you're a mod or something, which is a bit leaner, but for someone like Jack, we went for that more boxy style, and the colours are quite vivid, quite bright. If you look at any of those movies and the references that Edgar sort of gives you, there, you know, the women are in just very bright clothing, really, and similarly, the sort of men are sometimes as well. And I don't know, it's like anything, isn't it? It was a period in time. I thought the cars were pretty cool and the bands were pretty amazing, and like anything, it's coming out of a sort of repressed time into a very expressive time, and hopefully that's the bit of our movie that we're in. And obviously that then goes on to inform all of Eloise's choices in her life, in fashion, and it's cool. It's a cool, you know, cool element of the film. We shot in the middle of Soho. We shot on the Haymarket in London, and they literally put some awnings over, you know, shops and restaurants that I go in. And I've got this amazing Triumph that I drive around in, and I mean, I have mates coming up to me in the middle of Soho being, "Oh, Matt, are you in a movie in the middle of Soho?" I'm like, yeah. Which is cool, it's cool. And it's it's wonderfully designed. Marcus has done a fabulous job, and I mean, and then particularly things like the Café de Paris, which they built to scale. And I think Diana Rigg said that, yeah, this is how it actually looked, because she lived it, baby. So that was, yeah, really exciting and nice to sort of have that texture and that truth and that quality of design to the film. I think it's going to lend itself to it beautifully. 60 stars. Yeah, it's an incredible thing, really. They were huge stars and still are of the time, you know. And I mean, Terry and Julie, he's in a Kinks song. He's in a goddamn Kinks song. Doesn't get any bigger than that. And his brother managed The Who. I mean, there's, you know, like, Terence is, like, fascinating. Yeah, and Dana's amazing. I love her. We're very lucky.